Bernstein and his wife Felicia,
and his sister Shirley,
and his sister Shirley here. The Arthur Lawrence, who wrote the book for West Side Story, said that although he was married, Bernstein was, quote, a gay man who got married. He wasn't conflicted about his sexual orientation at all. He was just gay. The most recent biographies of Bernstein, who was, of course, one of the great composers and conductors in America, both of classical music and of the Broadway stage, On the Town, West Side Story, Candide, and Wonderful Town. He went to Harvard, where he met Dmitri Mitropoulos, with whom he had an affair, and who was his guide and mentor. Mitropoulos was involved with the Boston Symphony. And the most recent biographies think that Mitropoulos suggested to Bernstein that if he wanted to advance, and Bernstein was very ambitious, and he was determined to be the chief conductor of the New York Philharmonic after he'd made this spectacular debut there, Mitropoulos suggested that he needed to get married. So he and Felicia were engaged when Bernstein decided to break it off, and he told Felicia that he was gay. And Felicia said it didn't matter to her as long as he kept any affairs that he had out of the public limelight.
Wow.
And so they lived together for many years. In the 1990s, Bernstein, in the 1980s, Bernstein left Felicia and moved in with a man who he had met, I think, in California. And then shortly thereafter, Felicia got cancer, and Lenny was consumed with guilt and moved back in and took care of her for the rest of her life. He died in 1990 after giving his final concert at Tanglewood, where he'd really begun his career. I was at the rehearsal of the final concert, which was incredibly moving, and he could hardly move. He was so weak, but it was quite spectacular. So, as a lifetime New Yorker, he chose that this would be the site. He chose this site after Felicia died, and as you can see, it's beautifully maintained, beautifully landscaped. And if you're not familiar with it, it is a tradition that Jews don't leave flowers at graves. They place rocks as a permanent memory, because the rocks won't erode. And so that's why all the rocks, all the little stones here.
There must have been many, many more rocks than have been put somewhere else, right?
Yeah, they
take
sort of
every so often.
Every so often,
Right.
so new rocks can get their moment. Yes, so it's very hard to find a rock around here.
My sister brings rocks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
BYOB.